now.
Canada's Parliamentary Budget Officer Kevin Page, before the last election, warned everybody. He warned government, he warned Parliament, he warned the public that the F-35 stealth fighter program costs were spiraling well above what the government was telling us. This week, he was vindicated by Canada's Auditor General in a report. Of course, that's all the talk in Ottawa right now. But what we're talking about today is another warning that Kevin Page has issued that we have yet to see confirmed or refuted, and that is the fact that the Conservatives' Omnibus Crime Bill is going to cost provinces a huge amount of money to implement. We're talking with Cathy Corrigan, BC NDP opposition critic for public safety. We'll take
giving you the straight goods. Adam Sterling on CFAX 1070.
Kevin Page was right about the cost of the F-35s. Will he be right about the cost of the Omnibus Crime Bill? Well, that's something we're all going to find out, whether we like it or not. As it is now law, the costs, or at least the expected increased costs, expected to be filtering down to the province. Cathy Corrigan, BC NDP opposition public safety critic here in British Columbia. ADP recently filed a Freedom of Information request with the province to say, hey, how much extra is this going to cost us? They got back 300 pages of documents with a whole pile of whiteout and some words here and there. Cathy Corrigan, thanks for staying with us. We had a call during the break from a listener, Ben. Now, Ben wants to know, how is it that all the premiers have to take this? Why can't all the premiers here in Canada just have the guts to stand up and say, no, we didn't make these laws, Harper government. You made them. You pay for them.
That's a good question. I don't know why they can't do that. Of course they can, and individual provinces have been doing that. Certainly Quebec and Ontario, I think Newfoundland, others they have. But I guess the box that they are put in is that they say that the provincial government has said very loudly that they support these changes. So I guess they feel that they can't be critical of the government. But you know, there's a lot of these provisions that we have real concerns about, and there's real questions across the academics and across those that work in corrections that many of these provisions are not actually going to be effective and will create more crime rather than lessen it. So what our federal counterparts did was ask that some of the pieces of the bills be removed and voted on separately because they could support. I mean, we all obviously are supportive of getting rid of and having increased penalties for internet luring of children.
Exactly.
You know, I mean, and you know, the suggestion has been made in the legislature that you know we don't support that. Well, of course we do. That any you know, rational person would say, look, you know, there's some really horrendous crimes that we have to increase the penalties for. But there are others that are really questionable, and then the cost associated is, you know, it's always an issue. It's always a matter of prioritizing and saying, what are the priorities for us, and how can we most effectively use taxpayers' dollars? And to me, that's always the test. So when you say, well, there's no money for something, or there is money for something, you just have to balance and say, look, there's a limited pot here, and we have to know what our priorities are. So the priority for the federal government would not have been the priority for the New Democratic federal government, and nor would it have been, some of those provisions would not have been for us. But here we are. We're in that place that it has to be paid for. Now I want to know how the government plans to pay for it and how much it's going to cost.
Wouldn't it be ironic if, because of this omnibus crime bill, more people ended up walking due to trial delays and inadequate funding than if it were never passed?
We're in that situation because if we already have over 100 people going free last year with stays or, you know, ending the trial, many of them because of the excessive delays. If you already had that last year, just imagine how many more we're going to have when you eliminate conditional sentences, which means that people are going to have to go to jail. People, therefore, will be more people, I suspect, will be fighting more vigorously, so more court time is going to be taken up, so it's going to cost our courts more. There's going to be more policing time as police officers are going to be held up in court more often. So if they're in court, then you've got to have somebody else out on the road. So that's going to increase policing costs for municipalities. It's going to affect the system in a variety of ways. And you're absolutely right. Unless we do something about the judicial system and put more resources, we do have to put more resources in. The judges have been very, very clear, and also certainly the people who work in the system in corrections and so on have been very clear that we have to put more resources in. And if you don't, you're going to have more people going free that have committed crimes in this province.
Now, this is normally the part of the conversation, I'd say, but yeah, how many more resources and where are they going to come from? But that brings us back to one of the reasons we're having this conversation in the first place is the government won't even say how many resources we need to hold the line because we don't know how much the Omni-Crime bill is going to cost.
Well, exactly, and I just don't understand that. The work should have been done. A competent government would have done this work, would have done the estimations long before now. It looks to me from the documents that very little, if anything, was done on the costing aspect of it prior to the bill being passed. We do now have a working group who is looking at it, but the work seems from these documents, given their blanks, lack of what we know because of those blanks, but it does look like they're working on it, but they're certainly nowhere near to being finished, and it just doesn't make any sense that they should be so far behind this wave that is coming towards us.
Do you think that maybe they just didn't want to know? They knew it was going to be bad, so they said, you know what, we just can't deal with this right now. We've got way too many other things that are going on. Let's deal with this later.
Well, you're suggesting delay, and what they have done is they've announced yet another review, and it just seems to be the favorite thing that this government is doing now is saying they're reviewing the matter. So they've announced a widespread review, but I thought that's what ministers were supposed to do throughout their mandate, is they're supposed to be continually reviewing what is happening in their ministry and staying on top. So we have yet another review. That review of the justice system is not going to take place, or is not going to be completed until several months from now, and then whatever amount of time to implement. So I think that this is another example of dragging the puck, and it seems to be happening throughout government, not just in this ministry. So I think delay is probably a large part of exactly what you're talking about, to try to get through and I won't say deceive, but certainly not have all the facts before the electorate, before the next provincial election, which should take place in May of 2013. And I think that's irresponsible.
And I was just going to say, 13 months from now, British Columbians go to the polls, and if the polls stay the way that they are, it looks like your party would form government. The latest Angus Reid poll has your party 20 points ahead of the Liberals and the Conservatives, who are tied with each other at 23%. So I think it's a valid question to ask, what would your party do about this? You're the new Justice Minister, Cathy Corrigan. How would you handle the Harper Omnibus Crime Bill?
Well, you have to take a look and see what the costs are. I think you have to get the facts out there, and I think one thing that will be very different if we were to be elected is that transparency is important, and I believe that we will be a much more transparent and consultative type of government. So not only would we look at the impacts it'll have on the provincial government, but also you need to talk to people rather than creating enemies. You need to talk to municipalities. I think the more people you talk to, the most effective answers that you get. If you're consultative and you're open and you say, how can we solve this problem together, then you get real efficiencies and effectiveness in government, rather than saying, okay, this is happening, we're imposing on municipalities, as they have over and over again, and in this case it'll be policing costs, which are downloaded onto municipalities. I think that the approach that you take, saying we gather as much information, we consult as much as possible. One of the problems I know that people are saying to us, well, we need to know what your economic plan is, and we are doing that work, and some of that has already come out. But one of the problems that we face is that we have to rely on Liberal government's information, what they tell the world about the state of the finances, and frankly, I don't trust them. After the last election, it's really difficult to rely on what the Liberals tell you about the state of finances when they said there would be a maximum $495 million deficit before, and well knowing that it wasn't going to be, and then after the election it was billions. So it's a real dilemma that we're going to face. I don't think we're going to know. We have any idea until the books are open. If the people of the province decide to elect us, I don't think that it's going to be very difficult. We won't really know the state of the books, and I think we're going to get some really nasty surprises when we get there.
And now that's the provincial books. When do you think we'll have a good idea as to exactly how much the Omnibus Crime Bill is going to cost us? I.e., will there be an equivalent of, because with the Auditor General's report this week, that was the Kevin Page was right and the Stephen Harper government was wrong. Will we have that moment here with Omnicrime?
I don't know if we will. The Auditor General of British Columbia has the right to decide what projects he takes on. I haven't heard that there is work going on in this regard. That would be really helpful, and perhaps I'll suggest it at our next public accounts meeting. That's probably a good idea. I guess that's a question you have to ask Shirley Bond and the Liberal government and Christy Clark. When are they going to come clean and tell us the costs? Even if it's an estimate, why are they keeping this hidden? There's nothing that requires them to keep this hidden, and I just don't know why they're not coming clean with the public.
Kathy Corrigan, thanks so much for coming on the show today. We're talking about what the omnibus crime bill might cost British Columbia taxpayers. Canada's parliamentary budget officer has warned it's going to be a whopper for everyone. Will it be? Unfortunately, we have to wait and see. Kathy, thanks so much for coming on the show. Any final thoughts?
No, just let's keep pushing the government to be honest, so that we keep the criminals off the street and we don't have puppy killers and unrepentant cocaine dealers going free because of a lack of resources into the system. So,
Kathy Corrigan, thanks so much.
Thanks.